Hey guys, hello Bella. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how I deal with depression and anxiety, and I'm going to give you 10 of the ways that I use to cope with it. And I will say that it's not something that I've ever been able to overcome. It's something that I've suffered with for probably about 15 years or so, and I'm only 26, so it's just something that's been a prevalent part of my life. But I don't want you to get too discouraged, because depression is something that comes and goes for a lot of people. There's estimated that between 6 and 7% of everyone in the population of the United States has dealt with depression, and it's most common for people ages 18 to 29. So if you are going through your 20s, it's something that ultimately you may have to deal with. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the things that I do to cope. And I will say that depression is just like any other illness. You should treat it as something that you can treat the symptoms, you can manage it, but it may not ever go away. Sort of learning to manage my depression has been the most helpful thing, rather than trying to just make it completely go away. All of these things that I have used before. Some of them I use all the time. Some of them I use at times when my depression is worse. But all of them are very useful, and some of them are very obvious. But if you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you might need a reminder. Tip number 1 is to work out every single day, at least 30 minutes. And if you can do it outside, that's even better. If you can do it in an activity that is fun for you, that's better. And if you can do it with a friend or a group, that's an awesome way to get you outside of your normal life. If you're sitting at home and you're not doing anything and you're just kind of sulking, I think it's a great idea. Exercise gives us all of those good feelings, those endorphins, those mood boosters that we need, especially for those of us that need a little bit more serotonin. It can be really, really helpful. I know I don't really usually feel like working out, but then after I work out, I feel very accomplished and very good about myself. Tip number 2 is actually something that you should stop doing. I meant to add earlier that some of these tips will be things you need to add to your life, and other things will be things that you need to remove from your life. So this is one of those remove things, and this is something that you guys are probably not going to want to hear either. But tip number 2 is to stop listening to sad music, stop consuming sad content, sad movies. It's just not doing you any favors. Trust me, I know. I went down this rabbit hole of listening to sad music for probably about 3 years, and it was not a very good time for me. I probably got into the worst possible shape of my life, mentally and physically. One of the things about the sad things is it makes you feel like you're not alone, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you might watch it once in a blue moon, but I would not recommend just sitting there constantly listening to sad things, because your brain is taking in all that information, and there's no telling what kind of subconscious effect that it could be having on all of us. So I'm gonna highly, highly encourage you to stop listening to sad music and stop watching sad movies and shows. Tip number 3 is going to be an activity for you. This is something that you can sit down and do in about 20 minutes to an hour, and that is to sit down and write out some goals. So what I would want you to do is to write down a goal for today, a goal for this week, a goal for this month, and a goal for this year, and possibly even like a 5-year plan. And what this does is, if you are trapped in the depressed and anxious mindset and you're trapped in that cycle, it's really going to give your brain something else to think about. It's going to give you a little bit of hope. It's going to give you a little bit of, maybe what if my life looked different? What if I could try and become a better person? What if I went after my dreams? So I highly, highly encourage you to sit down and write some of these goals. Personally, for me, I usually write out monthly goals, and I'll also write out quarterly goals for the year. And these can be physical, emotional, spiritual, relationships, family, fitness, anything that you find valuable. You can even write down like, what are the things I value in life, and then make goals within all of those categories. Tip number 4 is to do things for your physical appearance. So I bought this shirt for my physical appearance because, let's face it, when we look better, we feel better. I dyed my hair for my physical appearance. I did my brows for my physical appearance. All of these things contribute to how you feel about yourself, and how you feel about yourself is ultimately the way that you walk around in the world and how you interact with people. So, if I make these videos and I'm in like a baggy black shirt with no makeup, I didn't do my hair, everything's just going downhill, I'm not showering, obviously that's going to put me in a worse state of mind. So even when I don't feel like it, I get up, I get dressed, I put on normal clothes, I try to put on my makeup, and I try to do something that will make me look good and make me feel better. When you make yourself feel better, you kind of like trick yourself into thinking like, maybe I'm not depressed, maybe I'm fine. It's honestly kind of like a cheat code to feeling better, because when I look good, I just can't help but like feel good. When I dye my hair, like I got a fresh dye right now, and I just feel like it looks so shiny and so nice, and it's just a small thing that like kind of boosts my confidence a little bit. Tip number 5 is really about like getting outside help, and that is to seek therapy or seek out medication. And I'll bundle those two things together because I think that sometimes people who are adverse to medication, they don't want to take medication, can definitely benefit from therapy, and vice versa. Like if you don't want to go to therapy, maybe you'll benefit from medication. Or if you're like me, you'll just be like, I'll take both. I'll take anything that I can in order to feel better. Therapy is not going to fix you, and it's not going to magically make all your problems go away. But it certainly helps you sort of like assess things in your life that need changing, some of the patterns that you may be repeating, some of the things that you've told yourself about yourself so many times that you've started to believe it. These are all things that I learned in therapy that just helped me become like a better version of myself. Also, for those anxious people like me, your therapist can teach you ways to calm your thoughts, to rationalize your thoughts, and even to start to think differently altogether. So I highly, highly recommend that. And as far as medication goes, if you have anxiety and depression, there's nothing wrong with taking medication. There's nothing wrong with being on it for a year or being on it for the rest of your life. If no one's ever told you that, I'm going to tell you that now, because, to battle something for so long and not try any kind of medication, it's a personal choice. But if it's something that you've been thinking about, medication is usually not as expensive as we think it is. I pay a couple of dollars a month for, I think it's Buspar, and that has really just helped my anxiety overall. Number 6 is another exercise, and this is to write down morning pages. So morning pages are basically you get a piece of paper and you write out all of your thoughts in the morning, your anxieties, your fears, your plans, your worries for the day, anything that may have bothered you when you went to sleep last night. Just knowing that I can like put it all out on the page and get on with the rest of my day is really just kind of like, it eases my anxiety for the day, especially like if I have something that like has been on my mind for a while. Just to be able to dump it out on the page is so like cathartic. As far as morning pages go, obviously it's called morning pages, so you should probably do it first thing in the morning, before you check your phone, before you start scrolling or anything like that. I think that this is a great exercise to do. And also while you're at it, just checking your phone early in the morning, right when you wake up, and then right before you go to bed is really not good for your anxiety at all. I would highly recommend against doing that. While morning pages are good for in the morning, I think that you can also do something like this in the evening, especially if you're like me and you get super anxious at night, like when everything is just quiet and it's dark, especially if you live in an apartment or a house alone. It can be very lonely at times, so just being able to scribble down some stuff on the page is really beneficial to me. Maybe just writing some thoughts or following some journal prompts offline. Tip number 7 is to read. This is something that can make you a better person all around. It's very easy, it's very cheap, and I think that you'll benefit from it no matter who you are. But when you read, you really do get outside your own brain, your own thoughts. I mean, reading is literally like reading someone else's thoughts usually, especially if you have like a first person narrator. When you read, you take in other perspectives, you look at life in a different way. You may see things from a different perspective after you finish reading a book and then for the rest of your life. I know that some books personally have helped me frame some of my problems in a way that I can kind of understand it a little bit better, especially a lot of the self-help books that I've read. It sort of made me realize, okay, this is something that is clearly affecting me. What am I going to do to change it? And so the books will a lot of times have examples and things that you can do to change your mindset or your habits or things like that. So I think that reading is a really good way to kind of boost yourself out of that mood, that low mood, especially for those of us like me who maybe you just want to sleep for like 2 or 3 days and you don't want to do anything, you don't want to see anyone, you just want to sit in the dark and watch those sad movies and those sad shows. For me, reading is something that's just like really low effort, high reward, and we don't get that very often in life. All it really requires is a little bit of concentration, a couple of dollars for the book that you want to read. You can usually buy used books off eBay and Amazon for pretty cheap, and also just kind of a willingness to be open to learn something new, a willingness to be able to think about something a little bit differently. And certainly we can become stubborn in our patterns and stubborn in our thoughts, but for me, learning like, okay, you're in a destructive cycle right now, you're gonna have to figure out how to pull your way back out of this. You're not talking to yourself very well, you're self-sabotaging, you're drinking too much, or you're doing things you wouldn't normally do. When I get in those cycles, I feel like reading for me has always sort of been like an answer to a problem. I feel like reading has also given me like a lot of short-term motivation over the years, where if I finished a self-help book, I got really motivated and I could oftentimes get out of the rut that I was in just by reading a book. Tip number 8 is something that my therapist taught me, and that is to ask Socratic questions. So if you Google this, you'll find lots of different ways to do it. Actually, I can pop up some different ones on the screen here and give you a little bit of an example, but basically you take a thought that you're having, it could be an intrusive thought or a thought about a situation that you're going through, and you basically break down the thought. You say, is this really true, or does this just feel true? You can ask yourself, am I expecting the worst case scenario here? Or can you look at it from a perspective of someone else? Like, how would this person in my life see it? How would my mom see it? How would my best friend see it? How would my therapist see it? And so you might want to ask yourself some questions like that, especially for those thoughts that can become a little bit cloudy, a little bit confusing. Personally, one of the hardest things for me with my anxiety is kind of trying to figure out what my feelings mean, and then trying to figure out, like, is this really true? Am I making too big of a deal about this? Am I not reacting enough to this? And I feel like those Socratic questions help me a lot with situations where I don't necessarily know the right response to some things. I wasn't really raised in a family with the best communication skills, and we're not really good at talking about our emotions. So when the Socratic questions come into play, I can assess a situation from a point of, like, what makes the most sense? What is the most likely thing to happen? What might I have done differently? Those are all questions that can be really, really helpful when dealing with these situations. Tip number 9 is to reach out to your friends and family. Reach out to your loved ones. You don't have to call them up and be like, hey, I'm super depressed, can you come over? You can just call and check on them. Call and say, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. I was wondering if you want to go get lunch this week, or maybe you want to go to a movie on Saturday. Get outside of yourself. Talk to the people that you care about. If you're like me, then a lot of time passes before you realize, oh, it's been 2 months and I haven't done anything with my friend, or, I haven't talked to them, I need to check in on them. Simply being able to extend the hand or reach out to someone and say, hey, just want to know how you're doing, really, really does help with your mood overall. And as far as family and friends go, I feel like, we're often hesitant to reach out to them, especially when we feel like I don't want to bother them, or they've got other things going on, or they're really busy. But for your real friends and your family, they're always going to be there for you. They're always going to care about you. You may not have a big family, but I guarantee you there's at least one person that you can reach out to when you're feeling alone, and I highly recommend that you do that, because being alone all the time is not good at all. I used to have an instinct to isolate myself for weeks at a time, to where I didn't want to see anyone, I didn't want to do anything, and it really wasn't good for my mental health. Things would get even worse. They would not improve when I did that. So I'm really a big fan of basically, as early as possible, when you feel yourself like spiraling or you are stuck in that depressive episode, to try and get in touch with your family and your friends. All right, guys, the last tip that I have for you is to volunteer your time to something that you care about. The way that this works is you're going to focus so much of your time and energy into your volunteer thing, you're not going to really care about your depression anymore, or you're not going to care about your depression when you're doing the activity. I highly recommend doing something that you can do with other people. You can volunteer to causes that you care about, for things that you care about. There's so many different things within the community that you probably don't know about because you just aren't aware of it. So within the next month or so, do some research, call some places, look at some places that you could potentially give a couple hours of your week to. It doesn't have to be some crazy amount of volunteer hours. You could just volunteer, twice a month for 2 hours, 4 hours a month. So who couldn't give up 4 hours of their month for something that could be for a good cause? Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. All of these tips are things that I've personally used. I would never suggest things that I haven't done, because having depression for over half of my life, I've been told like a lot of stupid things about it, and I've had a lot of things that people said that was just kind of ignorant or insensitive. So I know how it feels to be someone who is struggling with this, and I know how it feels to feel like it's never going to end. And sorry, you can get through it. You can deal with it. It is manageable. I'm feeling a lot better than I used to feel about it. I feel like I've gotten so good at like realizing some of my patterns and stopping negativity when it starts, and just doing things that are overall healthy for me. And I hope that you can do that as well. You never know what someone else is going through, so I would highly encourage you to reach out to your friends and family. You just can't tell when someone has depression. Like, it's not always obvious. We don't always walk around like Eeyore. We're not always sulking and sad all the time. So it's just something that I think the majority of people don't tell anyone that they have it, and so that creates even more stigma around the issue. But for me, I think doing these 10 things is really what sustains my energy, it sustains my mood, and if not for all of these things, I probably wouldn't be here today, honestly. I just don't think that when I was in a bad place, I just didn't see a way out. I felt like it was never going to end. I felt like my life wasn't worth living, and now I know that that's not true. Obviously, my brain told me all kinds of terrible things, and what you have to do is you have to make the effort every single day. Today, I didn't really feel like doing this video. I didn't really feel like getting dressed. I didn't feel like taking a shower. I made myself do it, and through those things, you're doing this for yourself, so you'll almost have to treat yourself like a child sometimes. Just talking to your inner child, telling them, like, I know you don't want to take a shower and get ready, but we have to get ready. I think that is a really helpful tip. But for anyone who enjoyed the video and stuck with me this long, just know that there is some stuff that you can do, but you have to make the effort yourself. If you think that anyone could benefit from watching this video, please share it with them. This video, I really feel like, has a potential to at least improve someone's life and possibly even save someone's life. So if you like it, please hit the thumbs up button. If you want to see more content from me, you can always subscribe to the channel and you'll get notified when I come out with new content. Thank you so much for watching the video, guys. I appreciate all your comments, all your thoughts that you give me, and all the ideas for new videos. Much appreciated. I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.